Good morning from Western Washington. Hi, my name is Catherine Ousselin, and I'm a French teacher in Mount Vernon, Washington, which is about 20 miles away from the Canadian border, in case you're looking for a fun getaway. So today we're going to be looking at creative, collaborative, and communicative digital tools. And I say this because a lot of schools have been pushing devices onto their teachers saying, here, make your kids use this technology so that we look like we're using technology. And in that moment of desperation, we have the easiest, quickest tools, Catherine Ousselin, and or Quizlives or Quizlet, and that's mostly assessment and acquisition, or learning as some people call it. But today we're going to look more at creative, collaborative, and communicative tools that get your students producing with the language and demonstrating what they have acquired. So a little bit about me, you can find me on the web. I'm in the process of updating my website, although it's still functional, it just needs a little facelift. And I'm always on Twitter. I am always on Twitter. So if you need to find me, just tweet me and we'll get in contact. Or if you're more of an email person, okay? I have lots of roles in the world language community, and it's my pleasure to work with the teachers when I go to workshops around the country, whether in person or with webinars like this. I like to share and mentor and discover with you all. So today we're going to identify and evaluate some web-based tools and some digital apps. So I only use iOS, so Apple products. If you have Androids, I'm sorry, I don't know much about those, but we're going to look at collaboration, production, and assessment. And I always try to use activities for all three modes of communication. Interpersonal can be a little tricky, but there are ways with that. Interpretive is one of the easiest, and presentational is kind of what we'll be looking at most today. I base a lot of my research and my ideas for activities for teachers and students based on the actual core practices. And these have been recently updated, but when you have this presentation later, you can go look at the core practices and see how we're using use target language for learning and the authentic cultural resources is part of the integration of our technology. Another thing that I shared is a lot of schools are still using Common Core language. And I wanted to show teachers, like if they're asking for iPads, how can you ask for apps or devices or both in a way that administrators understand? And I use those fancy words of Common Core standards. And what I built here is a symbol chart with all the Common Core standards for the ELA and then the actual or national world language standards. And I put those side by side and I line those up with the apps that will match those. And I think that's the most empowering thing is when a teacher says, I want to have this app, and the admin says, why? Well, you can go back and say, ELA 1.3 says that we should, and this app will cover that. That's a great way to talk to your administration in a way that he or she understands. But today we're going to also work with some digital storytelling, and that's been my one way to connect with students' creativity so that they know that they're not just memorizing scripts. They're not going to the doctor's office for that visit to really, show off. Can they draw? Can they use video? Are they great with music? And then really the best part is that we can always push this out to a larger community now. I share my students' products on YouTube, on Twitter, and a little bit on Google Plus when I remember to do that. So that way more people see it. So it's an authentic audience. It's outside of the classroom, and people comment on our products, so on our videos, on our digital skits. It's a great way to make sure that your students know that their voice, their learning, their acquisition is being examined and enjoyed. So, like I said, we're trying to get some personal expression with the language. Writing is always the key point that we're trying to help the students develop, is that writing for a purpose, and then helping them develop their proficiency and fluency. So we know that we want to do all of that. We want to be somewhat creative. The first tool I'm going to show you today is called Screencastify. And this is a Chrome extension, which means that if you're using the Chrome browser, you're just going to put this as an add-on, and you have this, and you'll see you're going to see, and Screencastify is basically a way to record.
Okay, and Catherine,
And
can you hear me?
I have 3 examples here of digital store, another product, plus Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so when you go to a website, the connection breaks up a little bit, so you might want to wait a second for the website to load.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to click on one and then I'll wait.
Okay.
Okay. So the first story example that I'm going to give you is I use Storybird, which is a free site. It allows teachers to grab artwork from different artists that have uploaded, and it's beautiful artwork. And they can take the stories that they create, so they don't have to draw. They put them in an order. We have a theme usually. I say if we're talking about childhood experiences or family experiences. And the students line those up. They make a story, and then they write the text. And then they use screencastify to narrate the story. So I'm going to click on this one.
Okay, can you hear me?
Are we back?
We are back. Yeah, that was taking a little bit of your
Okay.
bandwidth there. But tell us about it.
Okay. So the students took it's a storybook they created, and they put the pictures in order in the way that they wanted to tell their story. They wrote about it, and then they recorded themselves using Screencastify. So it's basically a screen recorder that allows you to audio over anything that's on the screen. Kind of like what we're doing now, but it records it and saves it as a video, which you can upload it to YouTube, or you can share it through Google Drive. There's lots of ways you can share that with other people. This doesn't seem to be working so well that I show you the examples, but you'll have the presentation at the end, and that way you can go through and look at all these examples. The second one I did was YouTube, and the students were able to find animated shorts from a playlist that I created for them. They took those animated shorts and they wrote out a basic narration of what was going on. And we sometimes choose animated shorts that don't have any dialogue on them, they're just visuals. But if you do find one with a lot of speaking, you can always just hit the mute button on YouTube, and then you would record right over that. So that's a way to get around all that spoken language that's actually in the video. And then we also did this with Google Slides, where my students they were French 2, they were comparing their families to animals based on their personalities. And that was a great production, because the students really showed up. What do they think their father would be if he were an animal, and why?
And Catherine, if you want, I can show your video example of Storybird. Would you like me to do that?
That would be great. If you can show those, just a few seconds of each one, that would be wonderful.
Okay, I'll show one of them. Give me 1 second.
Either one.
Lapinu s'est réveillé à 7 heures du matin. Il est largement baillé et il se levait lentement. Question de prononciation. Flocon a crié quand ses pieds ont touché le plancher qui était très froid. Flocon a cherché ses pantoufles sous son lit avec ses amis, mais il n'a rien trouvé. Flocon est descendu dans la cuisine et il a salué sa mère qui préparait son petit déjeuner préféré. Il a mangé 3 crêpes et il a bu du chocolat chaud.
Okay, so I showed a few seconds of the video, and it looks like they are just browsing through a book, and then are they reading the story, or are they creating as they see the picture?
No, they pre-wrote the story. That was important, because this is the first one he had done of that type. So they have the pictures, they put them in the order, and then they narrated the reading. They're reading their story as they flip through the book. Now, as an assessment, I could give them a really basic book and see if they could just do it on the fly, but I usually don't like to terrify students that way.
Okay, great.
Okay, so then you can look at the other ones later on the YouTube. Like I said, it's an animated short, and then Google Slides, those are pictures that the students chose. They wrote the sentences, And then with Screencastify, they hit the present on Google Slides and just recorded as they worked through their way through the slides. That was really fun. I think the students enjoyed that activity. It was in September, October, so these were brand new students to me, and I wanted to give them that idea of we're going to be learning language in a real relaxed, creative and thoughtful manner.
So let me ask you about the one on YouTube, which I can show as well. Is it they found a video and then they record their voice on top of the video, kind of like doing the
like a voiceover.
Like a voiceover. That sounds fun.
It is. It's great. Now I found 20 different videos for them. I made a playlist, and that playlist is that. But a lot of the students enjoy anime or manga, and so they found some of their own videos. And I said, as long as it was 2 minutes long, that was fine, and that was appropriate for the class. That was great. Mostly animated ones. I haven't had anybody do a live action one yet, but we'll see about that. It's a great way just to get students to take something that's already been produced and then add their.
Well, let me show a couple of seconds of that example of the YouTube video.
Okay.
Linda est entre le poulet. Au ramasser l'œuf. Le poulet était furieux parce que son œuf. Elle battait des ailes et Linda laissait tomber l'œuf. Le poulet était content, mais Linda était furieuse parce qu'elle a perdu l'œuf. Linda a pris l'œuf, mais le poulet sautait et a pris l'œuf.
Yeah, that looks great.
Yeah. So they enjoyed that. It's the exchange video where the farmer's wife is trying to take the chicken. It has a hilarious ending if you're interested to watch the whole way through later. That's a great one. And the last one, like I said, is just a Google Slides where the students now were responsible for creating the media, plus writing the sentences and then narrating it. So that they took all three jobs.
And I can show that as well. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so I'll show that as an example.
Si ma mère était un animal, elle serait une abeille, parce qu'elles sont travailleuses. Si mon père était un animal, il serait un loup, parce qu'ils sont protecteurs. Si ma sœur était un animal, elle serait une gazelle, parce qu'ils sont vifs. Si mon frère était un animal, il
So in that case, they created slides and then they recorded with a screen. What's the name of it?
With Screencastify.
Screencastify. Okay, great.
Yeah. So a lot of people said
Okay, so because you clicked on present, then your bandwidth took over. So could you please repeat what you just said?
Okay, sorry. A lot of people, I used the second conditional structure, so imperfect plus conditional with French 2. And they said, are you teaching that at that level? And I said, actually, no. What we're doing is giving them sentence frames in which they can add in their own information. I don't need to teach the structure. I mean, my mother said it was, if my mother were, she would be. So they already have that chunk, and they can use it, for I, you, he, and she forms. So it was a great way to introduce a different level of communication in a fun way. So we're going to go on if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I won't be clicking on any of these, but some other ways to do digital storytelling, if you don't like Screencastify, would be to use Adobe Spark Video, and that's either a web-based or an app-based. And a lot of teachers love this. I mean, it is very easy to use. You grab a picture, you can put text on it, and then you can record and make a short video. WeVideo does the same thing. I only use the free version of it. It's just a way to pull in. So it's a basic video editor, and you can pull in the pictures that you want or pull in the video, and then you can narrate over it. And Animoto, that's been around for a long time. A lot of people don't use it as much as they should or want to because they think you have to pay for it. But actually, there is a teacher subscription, and then your students' accounts are free. You just need to write Animoto, and I put the link in there and say, I'm a teacher, here's my school email, and they will give you free access for teachers. Animoto makes amazing videos, so you get to choose the music that goes behind it, and then you can add your own pictures or videos. You can add some text, you can use some captions, and it creates one of those fancy production type videos. Lots of fun. It gets kids motivated. It comforts with their language. And that's what digital storytelling is that instead of, how can I say this gently? Instead of writing out just the sentences, they're now taking their language and showing what it actually means to them. So they choose those visuals to help support their knowledge of the language and the structures and vocabulary. Okay. I'm a big fan of digital storytelling. We do it many times. If you're an iOS person, these are some apps that you can use like Shadow Puppet and Show Me, Little Bird Tales, and Book Creator. And those are all great ways to have your students either produce books or videos or just simple little videos like Shadow Puppet. That's the first one I used when I got my iPods about 6 years ago. Always a great way to, if you say I'm not a technology person, I'm afraid of tech, I would start with the Shadow Puppet iOS app. And now Shadow Puppet works with Seesaw. So you can kind of go back and forth with those two platforms, and students can tell their stories and then share them on the Seesaw platform, which I'll show you in a few minutes. So I didn't know, Paulina, if there's any questions or if you had any comments.
No, we're doing great, and these are great.
Okay. Awesome. So one last thing I show, a lot of teachers are using infographics as part of their authentic resources. So they're having students read, so they're doing the interpretive mode. And I said, well, how about we generate them? How about the students create their own surveys, and then they go around and ask, classmates and teachers, their community, ask the questions that they wrote. So they have to write the questions in French, but then they ask their friends who are non-French speakers in English. They compile the data, and then we use Easily, but there's also Infogram and Pictochart. Those are great infographic creators. The students can grab the icons that represent their information and then do the stats, the number crunching, which you can go back to the math teachers and they will love you for introducing stats into the class. And two ways you can do this. Either you can save this as a JPEG, or you can actually use Screencastify to narrate your infographic, where the students would be explaining the statistics, the outcomes, the results. Either way, we like to share and compare what's going on in our community based on an infographic that we read in class. Lots of ways to compare, so for winter sports or vacations, how many cars do you own in your family? What are the best ways to spend a weekend? There's lots of, cultural comparisons that can happen if you're using an infographic, one that you read in class, and then one that your produces. So those are good three. They're all free, if I remember right. Pictochart does have a paid version available. So here's where we have a situation, Paulina, because I wanted to show these three websites, but it looks like either I would have to send it to you or something because they have my login required. Well, how would you like to do that?
I'm not sure if we have time to exchange that information right now, but we can explain how these websites work. Yeah.
Okay. So Seesaw is what a lot of teachers are using. I use the free, as you can tell, I like free options. Seesaw is sort of like Facebook in a way that there's a feed. Okay, so all the students are in a class and all of their work shows up in that feed, and it's private for the class. but you can invite parents or admin, and that's important. The parents of the admin would only be able to see the student that they've signed up for. So the admin, I would make a teacher in the class, and the parent I would make just for his or her student. So on Seesaw, this is what you can do. You can take a picture and you can draw on it and add an audio note, and you can add stamps, and basically you can Snapchat it. That's really what my students called it the other day. They said, this is Snapchat, but it's in a feed that stays permanent. I love it because the students can keep track of all the products that they've created in one place. So this is a portfolio website. Since they can do drawing and reading, and they can take video, they can pull in a Google Doc, they can pull in so many of their artifacts that they've created, and basically they've got a nice little suitcase to take with them either to the next class or to the next phase in life. That's a great one. I've been pushing that, and I think Seesaw has got a lot of great professional development online. If you need to learn how to use it, contact me or them. So Flipgrid I use, not as much this year. I'm experimenting with so many different tools. Flipgrid Fever, it's on Twitter everywhere. This is a way for teachers to put out a question, and so they can put a prompt out, and then all the students record a video answer to that, to the prompt, and then the students can reply to each other. And Flipgrid can be shared publicly, so you could ask native speakers from around the world the same question and get answers from places that students have never been to or maybe never even heard of.
And Catherine, we do have a Flipgrid for the Language Learning Summit.
I saw that.
So
that should be something I'm going to do right after we're done here.
I'll share it later on Twitter and on Facebook page. We have a version for language teachers who want to share what they're passionate about, or for language learners to share what they're learning. And
you know Laura Sexton by chance? Laura has been, she's a Spanish teacher in North Carolina or South Carolina, one of those two. She has a Flipgrid chart for native speakers of Spanish at certain levels. And you can get in with her so that your students can watch the native speakers' answers to the questions that she's asked. This powerful tool allows us to get the video that we want. Instead of having to search, we find the native speaker, we ask them the question, and there we have 30 different answers. Let's Recap is really similar to Flipgrid. It's all free. And it is more, I want to say, diverse, complex, because you can add documents. So the students it's like a web quest. Students read a document, or they look at a web page, and then they respond to it. Other students can have a conversation about their reactions to the document. And it builds a beautiful, constructed idea of how students looked at something or read something or understood something. So I haven't used it as much. I have an account and I play around with it when I'm not trying all these other things out. So those are some great, they can be formative or summative on these. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next one. And Polino, you've seen this before, and I'm not going to click on any of these, but I decided to take the actual statement on technology and pull out, because it's kind of a wordy document, and pull out the most important ideas from actual statement on using technology. And I basically found an app or a website that will meet each one of these ideals. Now, when you get onto this presentation, you take your cursor and you can click right on these, and it will take you to that website. Definitely want to use this, because a lot of teachers say, well, I know all these tools, but I don't know how to use them or for which manner to use them. So you have the listening and viewing authentic, engaging, and timely materials from the target culture. Many teachers are using Edpuzzle. I think that's one of the most popular ones out there. It's where you take a video from YouTube or TEDx or wherever. You can pull it into Edpuzzle and then add questions directly onto the video. So the students are watching the video, it pauses, the question comes up. It can either be a multiple choice question or fill in your own answer. If it's a multiple choice, they'll know their score right away because you put in the correct answer. If it's a student open response, you, the teacher, will go back and just check it over and assign a point value for that answer. Play pause it is very similar. Again, you pull in a video, I don't know if they have the same gradebook set up. I don't use it as much. Formative, I love Formative. I need to be using it more. It's a platform where you can do different types of assessments by pulling in either audio, video, or text. And it looks like a PowerPoint presentation where the students are clicking through so that you can have one slide be the material and the next slide is the question. And so you can get automatic feedback based on what the students understood right there and then. I love that site. And it's free. The last little icon there is audio podcasts for French teachers. A lot of teachers ask, well, what podcasts would be good for my students to listen to? And I've been going through, I've got about 50 different podcasts that are good for either teachers or students or both at different levels, and those are just listed there for you. If you're not a French teacher, maybe share that with a colleague. I'm hoping the Spanish teachers get a list together so that they have a kind of a comprehensive resource packet for their colleagues. Now you see that Flipgrid again. Oops, let's put off of that.
So, Catherine, we have a question from Norbert that says, with so many apps, which one do you use the most? And is there one or two that students like the most?
Edpuzzle is the most preferred of all the apps for interpretive assessments or activities. So that's where they pull in the video. Seesaw is the app that I prefer to collect all of my students' performances or activities. And I was going to show you ThingLink coming up here soon, but usually if I'm going to give you two, it would be Edpuzzle and Seesaw. I have to go back a sentence. There's Seesaw. And then Screencastify. So I do Screencastify just for digital storytelling, but I could do it for other purposes. Like if I wanted to make a video for my students to explain a concept or for them to listen to me telling a story. So Screencastify, and then Seesaw, and then Edpuzzle. Those are my top three. How about that?
Perfect.
I give I give options because there are some people who don't like a certain platform or the way they mostly work the same way. You know, if you copy paste the link, you push it into the tool, the video pops up. That works for both Edpuzzle and PlayPosit. But some people have they like the look of the site better. So on the second row, you have practicing interpersonal skills as they interact via video, audio, or text. You have Skype in the classroom. I don't know if a lot of teachers are using that, but Skype has created teachers from around the world who want to do Skypes with other classes. So you could find a teacher in Chile who wants to practice their English, and then you say to the teacher, okay, we'll practice our English, you practice your Spanish, and you can have a Skype mystery hangout where you make questions and try and guess where the other classroom is. That's a lot of fun. I've done that once or twice with my colleagues up in Canada, which was pretty easy for us to find. And the last one is a link to the mystery hangout if you're interested in participating in one. I think there's quite a few teachers who are also looking for guest presenters. So if there's an author, or we were trying to get the French astronaut to participate with us. He's very busy with French and Canadian students, but I hope we're in his line. And so we've got a lot of ways to connect outside the world with interpersonal skills via technology. And we have one more slide. And more information, of course. This is the presentational aspect, the presentational mode, where students can collaborate. So a lot of us have used Padlet, and I know there's 50 different ways to use Padlet, and now you can actually do more. Evidently, Nicole Naditz put out that students can draw and add video and add audio right onto the Padlet board. If you ever need some suggestions, you can go to on how to use it. I have a blog that shows all of my technology use. The same thing with ThingLink. I offer that as an option. It's ThingLink is where you take one picture and then you populate the picture with tags so that you're talking about the picture. You can add video, you can add text, you can put links to websites. It's like taking your workbook with that label of the parts of the body picture, if you think about it that way, And then instead of writing the words, you're adding all of this media to make the picture come to life. That is a powerful tool. So if I'm going to say number 4 on my list of must-tries, ThingLink. Now, ThingLink is a paid subscription. The free version is very minimal, and I think it's still very good, very powerful. But I pay the subscription, I think, about $60 a year. Okay, now, most of us, our school districts are either using like Google Docs, so it's a Google Apps for Education type school, or if you're in the Office 365 realm, there are so many ways that you can make presentations that are collaborative, so each student is working on a slide, and then all of their work is in one place. Students can comment on each other's work, they can add videos, they can add audio. This right now is the most collaborative time for the students that I've ever seen, although I do ask them to do a lot of the face-to-face work first and then pull their ideas together, so they're not just sitting on a Chromebook by themselves typing away. That starts to take away the purpose of our curriculum, is that we are learning how to communicate face-to-face. So our students are not on Chromebooks every day. They are mostly talking to each other or interacting with authentic materials in front of them. And then we go for the technology to support their learning. Okay, so at the bottom, I have students work at their own pace as they access online content or use programs. And that's more of the assessment grounds, or the formative. That's the one I talked about earlier, where it's sort of like a PowerPoint with all sorts of activities plus assessments. Socrative is a quiz site, and it's free, where you can add in media and questions, and you can do self-correcting answers or self-correcting questions. Very helpful because you can keep track of it. Explain Everything is also another digital storytelling type of app and website where the students can explain their knowledge through video or through pictures with text. And then there's Nearpod, which I have not used as much. I did when it was first started out, but our school went towards other products. Nearpod and Explain Everything are somewhat similar in that the students take their knowledge, put it together, and explain it, or the teacher packages up experiences for the students and has assessments built into it. So Formative and Nearpod are very similar. Okay, well, I said that was the last slide, but I was wrong. Sorry, Polina, do we have enough time for this one?
We do.
Okay, cool. These last few are just more discrete skills. So these are I put them last because I think it's important to assess the students, of course. I think we need to give them support. So Quizlet and Kia has been around since I started teaching in 2002, I think, maybe 2003. Duolingo, it has its ups and downs. It has really weird vocabulary. And then one of my favorites is Languages Online, and that's for several languages. It's just basic vocabulary with a native speaker and pictures. So if you've never been on Languages Online, they have body parts, animals, numbers. It's for those students who are really struggling and they say, where can I go for extra help just for the vocabulary?
And
Catherine, that's where I would send them.
Catherine, we have Natalia watching live asking, how old are your students?
I have high school students who are 14 to 18 years old.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Kia, if you haven't ever used Kia, I mean, most of us use that back in the early days where it's multiple choice. There's some HTML Flash games, Battleship. It's a fun way to get kids to review. It looks a little 2000s, and I'm okay with that because the kids find it rather engaging. There's a Rags to Riches game, which is like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and they want to win. They will play that game 15 times in a row, and then I say, stop. Okay. The other ways that we can do this is by pulling in multiple applications to assess and assign activities. These can like an LMS for some people, but I think it's a little bit more flexible than some, like Schoology, I believe, is an LMS that a lot of teachers use. So Seesaw, LensSpace, Edulastic, and Google Classroom. And I'm currently using Google Classroom in a certain way. I have it tied to my website and it's tied to Seesaw. So that's just my experiences. I know how to blend all of these websites I always say to teachers, find the platform that fits you best and then play around with one or two and see if you can integrate into the big picture little apps that help support your students. So in your Google Classroom, you could put a link to a Quizlet activity. So that's one way to do it. And I believe Quizlet allows you to assign cards through Classroom. So that's the way that those two can work together. Just by adding links to the Google Classroom or to your Edulastic, you're showing your students, okay, here's our content and here's where you can get extra practice. Okay, so I'm probably going to see if there are any questions, or we can play around with, seeing if you could see my seesaw. But if you have any questions, you should try and find me somewhere online. I'm always grateful when I get little email messages or tweets asking, Catherine, how can I do this, or what can I do for that? I have about 500 tools on my website, and although I'm cleaning it up, it's still really user-friendly. I hope that there's something on here that will be helpful for you and your students, and throw out questions.
Well, we could try to get to one of your websites. I just want to let everybody know that I just posted the link to Catherine's presentation in the chat, and it will also be in her presenters page at the Language Learning Summit. So go ahead and play around with that presentation that you just saw, because it includes all the links to all these sites so you can explore them a little more.
Absolutely. So should I try the seesaw?
Let's try it.
Okay, I'm going to click on it here. This is seesaw. Is this okay?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. And Paulina, are we still okay?
Yes, it's cutting off a little bit, but we can see.
Okay, so this is my period 6 French 2 class. And this is where they take a picture and they're having a conversation about what they want to do if they went to Quebec Carnival. So this is an example of where students will take a picture of an animal and describe it. So they found and add their audio right down here, and we can download it if necessary. This is where the students were making their own infographics by hand by asking each other questions. What did you do over winter break? So they made the pie charts based on their findings and then had to read the number results and the activities. There's lots of things to do with the chart. There's a lot of chart at the moment because a lot of kids did those.
Okay, yeah, unfortunately we're breaking up a little bit, but I wanted to ask you if you can remind us, this could be made a completely private, correct?
Yes, to begin with.
Okay, can you answer that again?
Yep. This is Seesaw is completely private to begin with.
Okay.
There's a way to make it a blog so that anyone in the world can see your students' products, but to begin with, the students can only see each other's work or not. You can turn that off as well. And then you can invite parents in, and they'll only see their children. And then the admin can be invited in as a teacher. And that's really helpful because when you're trying to demonstrate the learning that is going on in your room, there's the proof in the pudding, as we say.
Okay, excellent. So I think we could stop. You could stop sharing the screen right now because we have covered a lot of materials today. And as I said, the link to Catherine's session that you just saw is in the chat. If you're in the live page of the Language Learning Summit, or if you go to her session page, you can find the link. Well, I'm going to post the links very soon now before before I leave, so that you can explore this deeply. But hopefully this was helpful for many people to discover some new site. Norbert says, a lot of apps to pick from. Thank you for sharing, Catherine.
Thank you, Norbert. I always push out to people. People know me as a technology person, and I always say, actually, I'm the curriculum writer who knows how to use technology to support the curriculum. We want communication first, not the technology. Just finding an app is awesome, but you have to think, how am I going to thoughtfully integrate this so it's a meaningful experience for my students? Everything that I've gone through in the past 15 years with technology, I mean, I used to overwhelm my students with technology, like every day a new app, and they said, stop, we want to color. Okay, now I've learned. But whenever you're stuck, think about, how can I encourage my students to come over their fear of being on video? That's a big one. We're working on that right now because we're going to be doing a green screen with Do Ink. I don't know if you've ever heard of that app, but it's a green screen. The students are going to be sharing their exploration of Paris. So they're going to have Paris monuments and places in the background. Plus they're going to be pushing in videos, and they are terrified of having to present on camera. So I show them these types of things and say, hey, I'm doing it. Let's try it out. Let's practice and see how we can build our skills that we're going to transfer them to the next part of our lives. So technology isn't just for language learning. It is helping produce students who are going to be active participants in a global community and have the skills to do it.
Excellent. Yes. John DeMato was talking about risk-taking, and the risk-taking is not just in the language production, but doing things with the languages also could be taking a risk, because when we immerse ourselves maybe in a country where the language is spoken, we are taking those risks, just maybe going into a bakery and trying to buy some baguette,
The first time I had those French 2 students doing the Google Slides, they said, I don't like hearing my voice. I said, nobody likes hearing our voices. I mean, we have them, so we'll have to use them. I think when we do these in little chunks, these experiences for them, they get used to the idea of my voice in Spanish, my voice in French sounds different. And you've actually seen that research where your personality changes a little bit depending on the language you're using. And I said, get used to your French mouth. Get used to this words coming out, and you're going to feel like, when John was talking about owning it, ownership of the language comes with confidence. And how do you get confidence? Is by practice and experiences. So that when you finally do go into the bakery and say, j'aimerais bien une baguette, that comes out so much better than saying baguette, s'il vous plaît. No, that's okay. That's communication.
That's communication as well. Thank you, Catherine, for your time and for sharing your expertise. Again, if you want to connect with her on the Language Learning Summit page for Catherine, you can find her website with more than 500 tools, but also a way to contact her, because she's very responsive on social media. So thank you for your time, and I'll see you again sometime online or in some conference.
Thank you so much. Every year, every time you do these, Lapolino, massive applause.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Hi, my name is Paulino, and I want to say thank you for watching this presentation at the Language Learning Summit. Please share with your friends on social media, and don't forget to use the hashtag #LangSummit. And go back to languagelearningsummit.com to look for other presentations, as well as live sessions and networking sessions. See you soon.